Take it away. Yeah, I promise I won't sing again. My kids would be mortified. Morning, everybody. Really lovely to be with you. The reality is I probably don't need a mic, so I'm trying to relax and be a little quieter. When I spoke to Matt, probably back in 2023, he was telling me about him and Laura and your church and just saying how excited they are about this space of care experience. Fostering, adoption, supported lodgings, teenagers. And it's a big need, not just here in Exeter, but across the southwest and throughout the UK. And I have many friends. I lived in Uganda for 11 years. I have many friends who reach out to me interested in what we're doing here and wondering what we can do there, because the story, of course, is repeated around the world. Now, what I want to do is take a moment just to share something which I wouldn't normally do. So, obviously, it's Remembrance Sunday, and the theme around remembering those who have gone before us in wars and suffered so much and lost lives, that's one to remember. And I live in Taunton, and that's part of the Somerset Council. And interestingly, this morning, they shared this piece from, well, let me read just the headline. The headline is, RAF veteran taking vulnerable children in care under his wing, aged 88 years young. How cool is that? I might share the article with Laura and Matt because it's well worth a read, and actually there's a bit where he shares himself, and I listened to it this morning and I found it very moving because ultimately this guy is still continuing his mission. He's still serving this nation, and 88 years young, and he's still doing fostering. Inspiring, eh? So, who is this bloke in green? Well, I do apologise for the green colour. We did the Great Bristol Run a few years ago, and two of us clever people came up with the idea of something bright, hideous, that no one could miss. And we did that, and it worked really well, because as we're running around, we are seen. We're on Radio Heart, we're being mentioned by the MCs, we get into the news because we are just so hideously obvious. What we didn't realise was the CEO liked it so much that it became our branding colour. So there's lots of people like me around the UK. And I every so often ask my wife, I say, look, do you think after 3 years, you think I could maybe not wear the green and I could just have my lanyard? And she said, no, wear the green and be seen. So you can't miss me. Probably helpful for you to know a little flavour of my life. That's me and my wife Sarah, have been married, as of 2 weeks ago, 21 years. And we were told categorically that we could not have children. And we were like, oh, and something more. We then felt some 7, 8 years later, led by God to go to Uganda. And what we didn't know is we thought it might be 2 or 3 years. Well, we actually lived there for 11 years. And it was the most beautiful time because although I'd spent my entire working career pretty much with children with special needs, all the way from the littlest and most complex to the big ones that used to beat me up and put me in hospital. And it was honestly one of the greatest jobs I ever did. We go to Uganda and God just turns a whole different thing on its head regarding children who don't have family, children who don't have a mum or a dad, who don't have even an auntie or an uncle. And we got there and we became, ironically, officially licensed foster carers for the Ugandan government. And man, did we learn. We got lots wrong, but also by God's grace, we got lots right. So we fostered for about 9 years. We did all kinds of fostering, pretty much ticked all the boxes. We went on to also adopt 3 gorgeous Ugandan kids, Isaac and Sarah and Sammy. Sammy was 15 yesterday. And God also gave us a birth child whilst we were out there, which is very cool. Then there's more kids than that. There's Elisha and Kaira and Wilson. They're like in their 20s, and they came and adopted us. It worked that way around, and they're beautiful. I was with them a few weeks ago in Uganda. And I come back with my wife in 2021, and I discover this charity called Home for Good. Never heard of it. I'm like, what is this thing? And I do a bit of checking out, and I fall in love with it because I see it's what is my family. and what we live and breathe. Imperfectly, hear me well, but in a way that we have grown and done ministry in our very own home. And actually for our children with some really difficult parts of their story, because we've done ministry in our home for so long, it's actually been quite healing for them. And our story is very intertwined. My wife is not well this morning, she's in bed, and somehow I need to get from here to home, and then one of my sons to a football match. Another one is, I think, going with the hockey coach to a hockey match in Bath, and everything else in between. It's madness, but it's good. And I love that, because if you cut me in half, I think you're going to find a few things. You know, like the stick of rock, you're going to find that I love Jesus. You're going to find that I'm a shepherd. You're going to find that my family is massively important to me. You're also going to find that I like to talk, because I love it. I love sharing, where I can see opportunities for encouragement and inspiration. And Home for Good is all about that inspirational piece, because we know that together we can do so much more. And for us as a church family, big or small, young or old, there's that old bloke, 88 years old, young, sorry. What part can we play? What can we do to get involved? Can we have the next slide, please, B? So it's a verse that I'm sure many of you know. A father to the fatherless, a defender of widows, is God in his holy dwelling. God sets the lonely in families. We are church family this morning, and even though there are those who are not able to join us, by God's grace and by his Spirit, we're connected, aren't we? And I love family. I love that it doesn't look so obvious. It isn't necessarily a mum and a dad and 2 kids. And this conversation, particularly for you younger people, because I'm like 50, so you're like really, really young, this is for you as well. It's not just for those of us who are older or greyer. If I had brought Isaac with me, which was the original plan, it all changed this morning because of issues, Isaac would be, he's my number 3 son, he's 13, he would be saying, Dad, I'm the one that gave you the grey hair. And it's true. He will also say, Dad, am I the most expensive child? It's true, because he's the one that's broken the most things. If you were to go and have a look at my car next door, which someone gave to us, there's quite a list that has developed regarding what Isaac has broken on that car, and it's got a little expensive. Love him. I wonder if I can put someone on the spot and read just a few verses from Isaiah 54. Is that allowed, Laura? Maybe you want to be the person, I don't know. It's just the first 6 verses. Phone or Bible, paper. There's a youth Bible over there. Whilst you access the Bible, I would just share something else. Thank you, Laura. I put you on the spot there, sorry. This thing of family is massive. And I want to remind us, and myself, this morning, that family can and should look different. And when you look in the Bible, it does look different. It looks pretty radical. Some of the things that we do in our daily lives, Isaiah 54, some of the things that we do in our daily lives can become quite mundane, quite routine. And that's okay. That's part of life. But I believe our God is a God of the impossible and a God of the radical and the unexpected in some fairly normal, boring maybe, individuals, including me. So let's just read from Isaiah 54. It's 5 and 6 as well, it should be. But I haven't got my glasses on. I'll tell you to pause, but it's definitely the first 5 verses.
All right. The future glory of Zion. Sing, barren women, you who never bore a child. Burst into song, shout for joy. You who were never in labour, because more are the children of the desolate woman than of her who has a husband, says the Lord. Enlarge the place of your tent, stretch your tent curtains wide, do not hold back, lengthen your cords, strengthen your stakes. For you who will spread out to the right and to the left, your descendants will dispossess nations and settle in their desolate cities. Do not be afraid, you will not be put to shame. Do not fear disgrace, you will not be humiliated. You will forget the shame of your youth and remember no more the reproach of your widowhood. For your Maker is your husband, the Lord Almighty is his name, the Holy One of Israel is your Redeemer. He is called the God of all the earth. The Lord will call you back as if you were a wife deserted and distressed in spirit, a wife who married young only to be rejected, says your God. For a brief moment I abandoned you, but with deep compassion I will bring you back.
Thank you, that's great. Now those are hard verses, and for me and my wife, they were very pertinent for some 7-8 years. And the reality is, as I look at each of you, not knowing your stories, not knowing your journey to even this morning, what it has been, the high points and the low points, the reality is our God still is the God of the impossible, and he wants to do good things for us. He wants to do good things for you. And he wants you and me to make a difference out there. The unlimited factor which this church uses as its name is his, not mine and not yours. But we need to tap into him. And as we were praying as leaders this morning, we were praying again and again for the Holy Spirit to come. Now, I might have a bundle of words, but the big thing that I pray whenever I'm in the car and toddling to some different church in some different place is I want God to make a difference. And if there's just one person that's inspired, not necessarily to become a foster carer or an adoptive parent, but to do something a bit different for the kingdom, then that's a result. Because we make a difference in all that we do, if we're honest. And that difference can both be positive, but also, if we're really honest, negative. And I want to make a positive difference. I want to make a kingdom difference. I want to be salt and light. Oh, good, my PC says I might want to plug my laptop in. I'll just turn the brightness down. So Isaiah 54 is powerful because in this context, in this time, if you know the story, the Israelites have been in exile for a long period of time. And there's a difficult period of time that they've been in. And I don't know about you, but when maybe something goes wrong, or maybe, I don't know, you're mucking around and you hurt yourself, you can feel sorry for yourself. You can lick your wounds. And there would have been good reason, maybe, for the Israelites to lick their wounds. If we can go on to not the next slide, but the one after, that would be really good. Because this is from the Message, and I'm quite kinesthetic in the way that I'm learned. I'm quite visual. And this says, clear lots of ground for your tents. Make your tents large. Spread out. Think big. Use plenty of rope. Drive the tent pegs deep. You're going to need lots of elbow room for your growing family. Now, I'm all for keeping God's word in its context. These words have meant a lot to many people for many years in the way that they've seen God advance. God says in those verses that I'm not just going to bring you out of exile. He could have done that. But instead he says, I'm going to bring you out of exile and get ready because I'm going to bless you. And not a little bit, but you're going to get more than you can imagine. And when we look at the church family, we want it to be exactly that, a place that grows, a place that changes, a place that challenges, and it's all for his kingdom. So in the context of Home for Good, we have these ridiculously huge needs. I'm not about kind of emotional guilt and those kind of stirrings in what I share, but there are facts and there are figures, and being informed is important, isn't it? Across the UK, over the next 12 months, it's estimated that 38,000 children will come afresh into our care system. 38,000. That's on average 15 minutes. Every 15 minutes a child comes into the system. Here in the southwest, where we are, there's approximately 7,000 children looked after currently by local authorities. Again, this isn't a message of guilt, but the church, and extending its boundaries, growing in family, can we not consider to be a little more radical, to open our homes and to open our lives to something a little different? Me and my wife, I promise you this, we're not the perfect parents. And if you were to ask any of my kids, they would tell you I'm pretty good at being grumpy. In fact, sometimes I'm awarded Grumpy Father of the Year. I deliver training in things like therapeutic parenting and all those kind of stuff, and my kids are always much better cared for by me for the next couple of weeks because the training is in my head. But I'm a human, and I get things wrong. Anyone here get things wrong? Oh, that's really honest and quite quick, thank you. And I think with my children, one of the things that they've recognised with Dad is he does get things wrong, and he gets them wrong a lot, but he also says sorry. And there's like this gospel message moment in those times with my kids. They are not perfect. Isaac and Sam and Tom and Sarah are the best thing that ever happened to me and my wife. But man, they're exhausting. And this grey hair, I guess next stage is going to fall out because of my children. But it's worth it. It's my sacrificial love for my children. Gets to be kingdom stuff as well, because 3 of my kids are very, very black. And me and my wife are not. And it creates conversation. It's usually only because someone says something that I remember, oh yeah, we look different. One of my sons was at therapy this week. And the beautiful thing happened. He was given some models of family, grown-ups and children, different sizes, different ages. And there were white ones and black ones. My boy, which I'm not surprised, he didn't pick on the colours, he picked on the sizes. I'm tall, my wife is short, so I was a black man and my wife was a white woman because the black man was the tallest figure in the pot. I love that he saw that rather than skin colour, because I think that demonstrates something by God's grace that he's seen in our family, that we are together and that we're all very equal image bearers as sons and daughters of the Lord. I love that. So what can I say to you this morning regarding this thing that is huge? Well, one thing I'd say is this is a space for all of us to acknowledge and get involved in. I think for charities, organisations, churches, justice movement groups, we can quite easily add on the end where you could pray, if you can't do anything, at least pray. Well, actually, I want to put that right at the top of the list for you. You could pray. These social workers that I get to work with, and I, along with Home for God, I oversee contracts with Wiltshire, Baines, Bournemouth, Christchurch and Poole, and Bristol. And I get to work with these social workers. They're exhausted. They're good people. Flawed, just like you and I, and some of them know Jesus, but they're good people who just want to find homes for children. And on a Friday, often is the phone call regarding finding a child a place, and they're struggling to work out what they can or can't do. In this room right now, I don't know if any one of you is involved in the world of social work. It's a hard place. So pray for them, because they are a good bunch, just trying their best. Pray for the children who find themselves in these situations. It's a hard space to be. And whatever situation has happened for them, you can guarantee they've experienced trauma and loss. Pray for the families who've had to give up their children. Particularly, I think, here in the Western world, we can be very quick to judge. Children aren't always taken away from a family for the most obvious things you hear in the press. Sometimes it's far more subtle and nuanced, but it's serious. It's an awful space to be. I was at an event a few weeks ago, and I stumbled into a situation regarding a lady who had lost her 2 children many years earlier. Praise God, we were able to converse and share, and the church wrapped around her and loved on her and prayed with her. But what a hard space to be. But then I want to say the fourth thing might be is to pray for you as a church. What can you do? For me, I want to see the church step up. I don't apologise for that. I want to see the church get involved. I want young people who are thinking or will be thinking about marriage, family, future opportunities to go, okay, Lord, how might I hold this one? Could part of my family not just be a birth child, but someone else? Someone who can become like family. I tell you, I forget that my kids didn't come from me and my wife. until someone says something. It's just not there. And I look at my really traditional but beautiful parents. My dad's 89 today, and they've loved my kids. There's no division. There's nothing there. My dad's not saved. My mum is. They just love my kids, and they're so faithful. And I remember my dad saying to me, "I'm very proud of you, Stu. I do think you're mad. I can do what you do." And I'm like, I wonder if I can. But God's grace, Dad. So even in the fact that we might play a part to bless a child with a good home, a safe home, an opportunity where maybe for the first time this child might thrive, might actually feel like they belong, might actually have a good of enough attachment to a foster carer that they might think, oh, people aren't that bad. You all know that there are certain things that trigger you. Even some of this conversation, because I don't know your journey, that might be stirring some of your hearts and your minds. And I would ask that you consider if there is something there for you today, that don't go away straight after the service and move on. Maybe take time with someone here that you might know, or one of the church leaders, to share and to pray with them and allow them to pray with you. Because we all need a bit of love, don't we? And we all have our challenges and our stresses and strains. Oh, good, my laptop died. Can you do the next slide, please? Sorry? Yeah. Sorry, yeah, it would have been the next slide. This is a lovely lady who has made a real difference to one little boy in her life. So, oh, now it's playing it. It did play early, didn't it?
It did. I don't know why.
I'll let you resolve. We have loads and loads of videos at Home for Good. And the reason I picked this particular one is because it's pertinent to my own story with my own family. It's about the church wrapping around a family in this space of fostering or adoption. Maybe for an overseas missionary, maybe for the church pastor or leader, maybe for a foster care or an adoptive parent. They get elevated to a place they don't want to be. They can become isolated. Do you know what I mean? Sometimes we can put them in that place. There are some amazing speakers and authors in Christendom right now, and we can elevate them to a place that, so they've nailed it. And of course, they haven't. They're like you and me. And the reason I say that is the wraparound care for those individuals is equally important. No one wants to feel isolated. I don't know what your relationship is within the fellowship and with your church leaders, but do you check on them? Do you ask how they're doing? Can I pray for you? I'm sure you do. Maybe you need to do it more. But the point is, we want to be seen, we want to be heard. And for me, my family one time had the keys to our house stolen by the church. It was great. Not everyone would be up for this, but me and my wife were chuffed because the fridge was filled with food, the cupboards were filled with food, the freezer was filled with food. We felt seen, we felt loved, and it blessed what was a very challenging time for us as a family. Is that amazing? So don't worry about the video. It's okay. We're going to pause in a moment and you're going to break into some small groups with a question to ask yourselves. It really is okay, guys. Don't worry about the video. No, it's okay. So the next slide, if we go to that one, is what part can you play? So you might not be coming to me after the service say, okay, Stu, I want to do this. I want to open up my home. You only need a spare home to do it. I'd like to do it. Let me find out more. And if you do, wow, very cool. I want to hear from you. But for most people, that's not going to be the case. So what part can you play as Unlimited Church? A part that will wrap around a family better, minister to them better. Can I put this down for a moment? What part can you play? This is my tent bag. I've had it 20 odd years. if I take out the implements, I've got my backup materials for the rips. I've got my tent pegs. I've got the all-important bedroom section. I've got the bit that keeps us dry. Oh yes, and the bag it came in. What am I missing? I took out the pegs. I took out the material repair kit. I took out the bedroom section. I took out the keep you dry section. Ground sheet. This has got built-in ground sheet. Go on. Place for it to go? No, I found space. Who? Oh, no, the ropes are built into the tent. Poles! Exactly right. Bonus prize, you can have an extra cookie. It's the poles. The poles give that tent, that structure. You know, here in Exeter, there's plenty of restoration going on. And the scaffolding that goes up on those buildings, it's particular to that building, isn't it? It's bespoke. It was really embarrassing. I'd been married to my wife about 6 months, and her lovely and super organised dad said, come on, Stu, let's go camping in the lakes. So me and Sarah, her mum and her dad, we all went up, and Dave's tent gear, just stunning, you know, all top-end products, and he had everything. I mean, literally did have the kitchen sink, and a heater, which was called Wally, and was very powerful. Anyway, I'm setting up my tent, and he's like, so how you doing? And I'm like, I've forgotten something. And he puts his arm around me, he's like, Stu, my son, what have you forgotten? I was like, I've forgotten the tent poles. He's like, oh, Stu, oh my word. I was mortified because as a man, regarding the father-in-law, you do want to wow him with your skills in the bush, in the outback, in the slightly difficult setting. And he said, Stu, didn't you check? I was like, Dave, I lent it to a family 2 weeks earlier. No, I didn't check. Oh, you should have checked. Anyway, after ribbing me for a while, he said, come on, let's jump in the car. And we went to Millet's and got this at 99 quid 20 years ago. Still going, still use it with my kids. My wife doesn't like to go in it anymore because it's quite small. But the point is, the tent was useless without those poles because they provided the support, the structure for the tent to be effective. The scaffolding around Exeter, around different buildings, is done specifically to be effective. We, the church, can wrap around families who foster and adopt and do supported lodgings for teenagers so that they can be more effective, so that they can, instead of survive every day, more like thrive each and every day, grow. You know, I sat down with our new ministers because we moved to this area only 9.5, 10 months ago, and I said to the ministers, just so you know, we are committed here, but this is my family, plus this is my work. And sometimes we're just not going to get there to church because things have blown up, things have happened. And it's a family-orientated church, and they just loved on us. I felt like I'd been understood. But here's that question. What part can you play to support those families? So just take 3 or 4 minutes in your own selected groups. I wouldn't want to tell you how to do that. If we'd heard from Busy, if the video had worked, she would have specifically said, so I'm not going to ask you, I'm going to be kind and not embarrass anyone. She would have said that for her and her foster care child, that the church caring for them meant once a week, come and be with us over a meal for the evening, come and do family with us. She would have said deliveries on her doorstep once in a while of brownies and biscuits and cakes. She would have said that for the foster child, he felt seen by these different members of the church, paying attention to him, asking him questions about how he's doing, being a bit of an uncle or an auntie. So what part can the church play? Well, there's a brilliant booklet which I've got on the side over there near my banner, and it's what the church needs to know. I don't know about you, but I think we're good at pigeonholing one another. We think we've worked out someone or something, and then we don't go any further to understand. I don't normally give my phone out to people I don't know, but as the body of Christ, I'm going to give you my phone because it has a QR code. And if you're interested and you've got your phone on you, click on it because you can pass that around, thank you. Because maybe your part would be, as I said, to pray. Well, there's specific things that you can do and pledge to pray. When we talk about big numbers, when we talk about 38,000 children coming into the care system over the next 12 months, when we talk about there being in excess of 100,000 in the care system right now, because the number's so big, we sometimes forget that it's made up of individuals. Individuals who've had some very difficult stories. So we want to pray. Another part to play is be a volunteer, be a champion, someone who will come to events with us, maybe to help do a stall and do a stand, maybe at Christmas time, maybe to help raise funds, because for me to come means I'm paid for my time and there's fuel to be put in the tank, but also funds to help do things like our care line, which is a wonderful family support care line for people just beginning, like, I might be interested in this, how do I find out more? All the way down the line to someone who's been doing this for 10 years, who absolutely loves what they're doing in their family, but needs some help. We have social workers, we have practitioners, they love Jesus, and they love this space, and they want to serve. So those funds are important. But equally, as a church family, a peer support group is something that's very, very beneficial. That support for a family who lives in an unusual space regarding care experience can sometimes, as I said earlier, feel isolated. Could, unlimited on its own or with other churches, create 1 or 2 peer support groups here in Exeter where people can come together with the commonality, which is care experience. It's a big deal. We have 2 now running in Bristol, and everybody is so grateful for it. This space which is safe. And the carers or the parents don't feel judged because everyone recognises where they're coming from. The kids are cared for by someone who's trauma-informed. It's amazing. So maybe that's something you could consider. I love what we do as a family. We live and breathe it, and we continue to learn. But I accept that there are multiple days, if I'm honest, where I feel a bit disheartened by the church and its lack of involvement in this space. Because our God, he loves family. He has welcomed you and I into that family. And he expects us, desires us, craves for us to make a difference. And I would love for you to consider if that might be you. As I say, it's not going to be a guilt thing, but it's a reality thing. So if anyone wants to talk to me or find out more, I'm obviously going to be at the back and I'm going to be drinking more tea, and maybe I'm allowed to have a cookie because I didn't have one this morning. Maybe you might be mindful of something I think Laura said earlier on, that when we were praying, which was maybe some of the information you might have gained brand new today, you might want to share with someone else. And as I say, please forgive me, younger people, but as you think of your future and what a family might look like, maybe you want to do it in a different way, a kingdom-shaped way, because I know God will bless you and encourage you. I just want to pray a little prayer, and I'm going to hand over to Laura.